Did Ms. Heard know that you were out of town on May 27th?
Yes.
And how would she have known that?
Well, I told her I was going on tour. I mean, that was well established.
How long were you going to be out of town on that tour?
2 to 3 months.
And did Ms. Heard know how long you'd be out of town?
I don't know if she knew exactly how long I'd be out of town, but it was a pretty extensive tour of Europe.
How did Ms. Heard's actions on May 27th, 2016 affect you?
Changed everything.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Oh, it didn't change everything?
This lawsuit.
Sorry.
Sure, if you could wait till the objection, please.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Relevance.
Tourette's.
A little colorful commentary there from Johnny Depp. But no, the truth of the matter is he comes back, Dr. Pearson, and he addresses, like I said, the counterclaims. He addresses some of the accusations from Amber Heard, and he also addresses this idea that Amber Heard purposely went for the TRO with these alleged bruises on her face while he was going to be away and couldn't fight it, right? And so the question, of course, is, was it necessary for him to come back on the stand? And how do you think he did? My personal belief is when he was questioned by Jenny Benjamin Rottenborn that second time around, he appeared to be a bit more shaky. You tell me, what did you make of it?
I thought he was exhibiting trial fatigue. You know, they've been in trial for a number of weeks. Trial lawyers even exhibited it. Everybody looked tired. The jurors were tired. And so if they were tired, I'm sure that they weren't necessarily perceiving it the way we are, where, you know, we're fresh as a daisy and you know, watching this every day from the comfort of wherever we are. Except for you and Anjanette, of course. You guys were in Fairfax. But I think that it's very possible that that it wasn't that noticeable to them, but very noticeable to those of us out here.
Yeah, I don't know. My perspective, when I was in the courtroom, I looked at those jurors. They didn't show any sign of fatigue, but maybe there was a day that I wasn't there and somebody observed something. They seemed to be paying much attention. But I do agree with you. This was when he was testifying towards the end of this case, and it was so much inundated, and this jury's inundated with so much. So, Sharina, I do want to ask you about something that the allegation that Amber Heard went for this TRO when he was out of town. This whole conversation about it, that she leaked the video of Johnny Depp smashing the kitchen cabinets to TMZ, that she or someone from her team alerted TMZ to her going to the court to file for this, all of this, how significant is that in this story for you?
Well, if the jurors believe it, it would go to show that she really couldn't be trusted, that she was very calculated, conniving, and she waited for Johnny Depp to be out of town, and she basically formulated the entire plan in her head even before he left out of town. So it wouldn't look good for her. And I think one of the most damning evidence against her is Kate Moss's testimony, because here she was bringing to the attention of the entire world that she thought about the Kate Moss incident, where Kate Moss was supposedly thrown down the staircase. And it's, you know, because of that statement alone, Kate Moss was able to come into, well, virtually come into court and do a testimony proving once and for all that she was not ever thrown down the staircase or even abused by Johnny Depp at any point. So all of these things combined, she just does not look like a very credible witness. And I'm wondering, just like everybody else, if the jury is going to come back with that same decision.
All right. Well, they have a lot to consider right now. We keep talking about it. We're going through 3 hours right now just of all of the testimony and evidence that they have to consider. This is just a microcosm of the 6 weeks of testimony they have to consider. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get an update live from Fairfax County, Virginia. We'll be back.
Wo hast du denn deins hin? Ich kann ja das hier, ne?
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So I want to go right now to Stacey Delicat, our reporter on the ground in Fairfax County, Virginia, who's been covering the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial for us today. Stacey, good morning. Good to see you once again. Any updates on who is arriving to court? We keep wondering whether or not we will see an appearance by Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. What is the latest that you can tell us right now?
Hey, Jesse, good morning. I do have a little bit of an update for you. This is what we know. In just about the last 5 or 10 minutes or so, we did see a little commotion at the door, and we did see Johnny Depp's attorneys, Benjamin Chu and Camille Vasquez, going inside along with a member of his security team. We saw them walk back in the courtroom through the front door, and Jeanette is on her way inside right now to sort of find out what's going on. We think perhaps jurors have a question, and that's why they're going back inside. We're not exactly sure, but it's the first movement movement, so to speak, that we've seen probably since earlier this morning. So could be something up here. Again, Anjanette on her way inside right now to find out, and as soon as we get an update, of course, we're going to bring it to you. I also want to point out, I don't know if you can see in the shot behind me, Jesse, but there's some orange and white barricades that have been set up. About a half an hour ago, sheriff's deputies pulled up. They began unloading these barricades and setting it up around the media because there really is increased media presence here today as we get ready for this verdict. Of course, Law and Crime, we've been on the ground the entire time, right? But a lot of other media outlets parachuting in, so to speak, for this final stretch of the trial for the verdict. There's German media, there's British media, all kinds of international media, still photogs, paparazzi, a lot of members of the media up there. And so the sheriff's deputies went ahead and set up some security barricades to make sure everyone sort of stays in their place and things stay safe out here on this very hot day in Fairfax. Jesse.
Any idea of who else is showing up outside that courthouse? We kept talking about the pass through, this morning, that the line to get into court was insignificant. I mean, it was pretty easy to get a pass this time. There's not the level of fan response as we've seen the past few weeks, but there are some people there. Do you see an increased presence as the day is moving forward?
It's hot out here, so remember that. I mean, we're in the 90s here today. Humidity is high. There are not a ton of people outside. There's a few in the shade. There's an Amber Heard supporter that's been out here since early this morning. Again, it was pretty easy to get a wristband this morning, so there are a few Johnny Depp fans that we saw inside in the overflow room and so forth. But it's certainly not the scene that you guys were watching and sort of living out here for the past 6 weeks leading up to today. It's definitely far diminished in terms of the spectators who are out here. But that could change as we get word. If we get word that there is a verdict, I mean, I would imagine a lot of people may come out. They may just be inside right now at a nearby coffee shop or deli or whatever because it is so hot and people don't want to be out here in the heat. Now, as for the stars at the center of this case, well, Jesse, we've been talking about it. Johnny Depp didn't stick around here this weekend. No, he didn't go back to LA. He flew across the pond to the UK to perform with legendary rocker Jeff Beck. I think we actually have a clip, an amateur clip of him on stage at one of the two shows that he performed. The first one in Sheffield, England, Sunday night. He was a surprise appearance. And then last night in London's famous Albert Hall, the two musicians, or Beck and Depp, I should say, have collaborated together in the past. They have a remake of a song that came out in 2020 for a song called Isolation. And apparently they got a standing ovation. Depp got a standing ovation when he was on stage in the UK. Jeff Beck scheduled to perform another show tonight at Albert Hall. Whether or not Depp will stick out there and appear with him again, we don't know. Or he could have already jumped a flight back and may be on his way back here, if not already back for the verdict. We just don't know. Again, we did see a member of his security team go in with the attorneys. I asked that member of the security team earlier this morning. I said, "Oh, you're here. Does that mean Johnny Depp's going to be here?" And he just said, "Oh, can't say anything." I don't know. So we're waiting to see. No sign of Amber Heard yet, but many are saying she is likely in the area and will come back when a verdict is called, but no confirmation of that at this time. Jesse.
Well, the member of the security team didn't say no, so there's a possibility we might see both stars here as the day progresses and maybe as we get closer to a verdict. Stacey Delicat, thank you. Appreciate it as always. Great reporting.
Yeah. All right. And Jesse, don't forget, we're going to have our live show coming up from 12 to 2. Anjanette and I will be here. We'll be taking viewer questions live. And of course, hopefully Anjanette will be back out with an update of what's actually going on right now in court as we speak. And we'll have all of that right at noon, right here on Law and Crime.
Great, very important to report that, yes, because again, we take your questions. It's going to be a fantastic opportunity. People have a lot of questions about this case as we come to the conclusion of it. So Stacey will host that. It'll be great for everybody to tune in 2 hours, as Stacey mentioned. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to continue on. Moving on to, we played you before, the testimony of Johnny Depp when he first took the stand and when he came back in the rebuttal case. Now we're going to do the same thing. So Amber Heard took the stand. She testified, and she was talking about the quote-unquote smear campaign that was directed against her by Adam Waldman and Johnny Depp. Adam Waldman, Johnny Depp's attorney. And she talked about what this has done to her, what these allegations have done to her, why she felt the need to countersue. Take a look.
And this is an article that was in the Daily Mail on 8 April 2020. You see that? And then, Michelle, if you can move that to the next page, and perfect. It says, Adam Waldman Depp's lawyer said afterwards, Amber Heard and her friends in the media use fake sexual violence allegations as both a sword and a shield, depending on their needs. They have selected some of her sexual violence hoax facts as the sword, inflicting them on the public and Mr. Depp. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Is this a true or a false statement?
False.
And why is it false?
Well, you have to use what I've lived through and what I've survived, calling it fake, saying that I'm harming Johnny with this, I'm harming the public with this. This is what I've lived through, and to say that it's a hoax, that these aren't even real things. I mean, after everything I've lived through and survived, and also I hadn't even spoken about the sexual abuse within my marriage. I had been protective of that. I didn't want to talk about that ever. Adam Waldman was the one who put that out in the world. As remarkable as that is, I had protected that. I had to go to another country to give testimony, and thankfully they allowed me to do so with confidentiality and some protection. And then Johnny, through his lawyer, not only uses that against me, but says it's a hoax.
Sharina, those counterclaims are very significant in this case, even though Elaine Brederhoft in her closing argument said we're not looking for $100 million, but what is fair and reasonable here, it still doesn't change the fact that these are important claims for the jury to consider. How strong are those counterclaims?
Well, Amber's counsel has thrown pretty much everything they have on the wall just to see what would stick. That's my take on it. First of all, Johnny was the one that started the lawsuit, and then she came back with a counter lawsuit for double the amount that Johnny was suing her for. And she was counting on the public's sympathy and empathy on this man just taking advantage of her, being abusive of this poor woman that she is, quote unquote. And, all the things that she threw up against the wall, and she wanted to see what would stick. And in my opinion, not much has stuck, if anything at all. And they sort of just kept trying to find new ways of framing the situation so it would be damaging to Johnny and make him basically lose the lawsuit here. But another thing we need to keep in mind is that no matter what she has said and has done in the past, the jurors are going to remember how she reacted to these questions and how she answered them in the courtroom. And what was really kind of freaky to me was the fact that she kept staring at them in an almost awkward way. She was just always looking at the jury and making, in my opinion, way too much direct eye contact. In the beginning, that wasn't happening so much. But as the trial progressed, she would just be talking to them. Now, I don't know if this was something that her legal team advised her to do to seem more credible, but it could have backfired because she was making way too much eye contact to the point that it was uncomfortable to look at.
Okay, well, let's see what happened when she was on her rebuttal case. And again, she talked further about how the Waldman statements affect her today.
Amber, how did Mr. Depp's statements and threats to you that you were discussing, how do those continue to manifest themselves today?
In the harassment, in the humiliation, the campaign against me that's echoed every single day on social media and now in front of cameras in this room. Every single day I have to relive the trauma. My hands shake. I wake up screaming. I have to live with the trauma and the damage done to me. My friends have to live with a set of unspoken rules about how to not scare me.
Objection, hearsay.
Yes, sir.
Unspoken rules.
Overruled. Go ahead.
About how to not touch me, not to surprise me. My intimate partners have rules about how they can deal with me, how they can touch me. I have rules for doctors, medical professionals I see, gynecologists I see. I live my life with these sets of rules that I have to follow, my friends have to follow for me not to have a panic attack or a triggering event where I relive the trauma. Even if I'm training to do my movie, for instance, if I'm training for Aquaman, a combat scene and a trigger happens, I have a meltdown and have to deal with that. The crew I work with have to deal with that because of the damage I walk around with every single day from what I've lived through, from what I've survived. I'm not sitting in this courtroom snickering. I'm not sitting in this courtroom laughing, smiling, and making snide jokes. I'm not. This is horrible. This is painful. And this is humiliating for any human being to go through. And perhaps it's easy to forget that, but I'm a human being. And even though Johnny promised that I deserve this and promised he'd do this, I don't deserve this. I want to move on.
Dr. Pearson, she's really highlighting the emotional distress component if the jury ultimately finds in favor of her for these counterclaims and they ultimately determine damages here. What did you make of that?
Well, I'd like to know if James Franco or Elon Musk had any rules. I'd like to know how she explains her sitting in the courtroom smiling the day before and smirking the day before. And really, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is there's no causation between what Johnny has done here and what she claims has occurred, because she negates the allegations that she made against Johnny Depp and her publicists and her conduct in relation to those that domestic violence petition.
I could debate this a little bit more with you, but we do have to hit a break because there was a whole testimony about whether or not the extreme social media campaign against her, negative tweets, millions, that were actually associated or connected or referenced Adam Waldman. But we'll have to take a break. Maybe we'll address that on the other side. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're covering the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial. The jury has continued their deliberations today. If we get any word on a verdict, we will bring that to you in real time. We have Stacey Delicat and Anjanette Levy live on the ground in Fairfax County, Virginia. I also want to let you know that they are going to be hosting a 2-hour live Q&A session where they will take your questions on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. Throw them in. We'll answer them in real time. It should be definitely something that we've seen people really have a lot of response to, because people have a lot of questions about this case. And as we come towards the conclusion of this trial, let's finish up with the closing arguments from last week. This is the last attempt by both sides to convince this jury one way or another about these defamation claims. We're going to start off with the closing for Johnny Depp's side.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence clearly shows that the answers to those 7 questions are all yes. And if you answer yes to all of those questions, which you should, we respectfully submit, you will be asked to state the amount of damages to which Mr. Depp is entitled. In the wake of the Me Too movement, movie producers know better than to cast a movie star who has been accused of domestic and sexual violence. And it is entirely within your discretion as jurors to quantify the amount of money that constitutes fair compensation for Mr. Depp's pain and humiliation inflicted by Ms. Heard's defamation. But while Mr. Depp certainly is entitled to monetary compensation, this case, at least for Mr. Depp, has never been about money. This case for Mr. Depp has never been about money. Nor is it about punishing Ms. Heard. It is about Mr. Depp's reputation and freeing him from the prison in which he has lived for the last 6 years. And it's 6 years to the day.
Well, you actually heard something similar from Amber Heard's side, that it's not about money. It is about her setting the record straight, her actually fighting back against these false allegations. But here was J. Benjamin Rottenborn delivering part of the closing argument for Amber Heard's side.
You also heard him lie to you. You heard him tell you that this was his first chance to tell his story. But let's break it down, because that's not true. He could have fought the TRO that Amber filed. He could have said, I didn't abuse her, but he chose not to do that. He could have fought her in the divorce case, but he chose not to do that. Instead, he signed the statement saying that no one had falsified any statements. He only filed this suit after he met Adam Waldman, the same Adam Waldman who convinced him to file suit against his former business manager, to file suit against his law firm, and fire them, and blame them for things. But by the time that Amber wrote the op-ed, Mr. Depp already had had another opportunity to tell his story. He filed a case in the UK against the Sun for calling him a wife beater. And in that case, he had many of the same witnesses. He was on the stand for parts of 5 days, and he got to tell the fact finder in the UK whatever he wanted. Now, it's not the same testimony he told here, because you heard me impeach him about 13 times with this testimony from the UK. But he's had his chances. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to tell Mr. Depp that this was his last chance. Tell him to move on with his life. Tell him to let Amber move on with hers. Stand up for the freedom of speech. Stand up for the First Amendment. This trial is about so much more than Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. It's about the freedom of speech. Stand up for it, protect it, and reject Mr. Depp's claims against Amber.
As we say, a lot for this jury to consider. Sharina, how do you think that they are going to go about this? You know, we looked at the verdict form. They have multiple questions they have to answer. Even before they get to the question of actual malice, there are separate questions about whether or not the statements were false, whether or not they were published. How arduous is that task to decide defamation cases like this?
It is very difficult, and it's even more difficult now because we have 2 very public figures. They're known throughout the world, and the criteria for finding out whether or not there was actual malice is usually a very tough one to begin with. But now we have this added pressure of Amber Heard's testimonies trying to prove herself as innocent. It's almost as if, you know, she started a fire, and I guess maybe was hoping that it wasn't going to catch on. But once the fire caught, she's now saying, oh, I'm sorry, it was someone else's fault. That's really not how it works. And the jury has the difficult task of now not only determining if all of what she said was false, and on top of it, if there was malice, which in my opinion is not very hard to come to a conclusion of, especially because she was calling Johnny Depp a fat old man. She's been, heard saying that in her recorded statements that they put forward. And something else that I also want to mention is lawyers come in very varying skill sets, and I think Johnny Depp's legal team did a fantastic job of putting forth Johnny Depp as a wholesome human being, whereas Amber Heard's legal team didn't really do such a great job, and they had to take her as she came, which in my opinion was pretty broken. And they had to present her as
Sharina, since we're coming, I want to just push you back on that for a second. You say a wholesome human being, but what about the audio tapes of him cursing at her? What about the audio tapes of him cutting himself? What about the drug abuse? What about, a lot of what we heard during the course of this trial? He admitted, he's not embarrassed about it, but it's not the best stuff. There are things that came up that don't make either side look particularly strong. I mean, Sharina, if he wins or loses in this case, do you think that Johnny Depp would be cast in the next Pirates movie or a franchise film after everything that's been seen here? You tell me.
That really depends on which movie he's auditioning for. I don't even know if there is a Pirates of the Caribbean left to come out. So in that case, I wouldn't know. Again, this would be guesswork. But as far as, people in general looking at this case, I believe Johnny Depp has won the hearts of most people, at least on social media. If you've been keeping up with social media, right. There's a huge fan base. So if we're just looking at that, I would say I don't think he would have any problems being cast into future movies. But then again, I don't know.
And Dr. Pearson, just to play devil's advocate here, when you mentioned before that you couldn't see a causal connection between the Waldman-Depp statements and any harm that she suffered, what about the intense backlash that she received online, millions of tweets, and many of them referencing Adam Waldman? I mean, couldn't you say that what she's going through right now is because her allegations were called a hoax and fake?
Well, again, I go back to Johnny Depp has a right to defend himself. He has a right to litigate. And so he believes that these things aren't true. She believes, so she's convinced herself these things that she has said are true. And the backlash that she has experienced, I believe, and the heightened backlash as of late, is because of her own testimony in trial and her own behavior in trial. I mean, you don't go stomping off the stand when the judge instructs you twice to go back and have a seat with your attorney.
Well, Dr. Pearson, Sharina, very strong opinions in this case, but this is a case that has a lot of strong opinions any which way you stand. So I appreciate you both coming on and giving your perspective on what we have seen and what we can expect as we come into verdict stage in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I want to let you know again, in about 5 minutes, we are starting the live Q&A session where Stacey Delicat and her guests are taking your questions on this case. So stay tuned here on Law and Crime. I am signing off. You're in great hands. Linda Kenny-Bodden is jumping in. We'll be back.